Angela Rayner has to go over this £40,000 in unpaid stamp duty on her home purchase. But has she just been a victim of, well, you know, nasty treatment by the media? That's the question. Well, let's put this to Richard Power Sayeed. He's a former Labour Party official and author and joins us right now. A very good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning, Julia. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Angela Rayner, she's the housing secretary. She's had some problems, some questions over previous home purchases. Her own department put stamp duty up to double the rate for second home buyers. You'd think she might have sought some legal advice. She said she did, but she's ended up paying 40 grand less tax than she should have. Should she go?
No, absolutely not. I think she should wait. We should all wait for the independent watchdog to come to its conclusions, and I'm very much hopeful that they're going to find in her favour.
Why should we wait for the independent watchdog where, in this case, when Angela Rayner has called for people to resign long before we've had a report from an independent watchdog for Tories caught up in similar scandals?
So I think it's specifically the Nadeem Zahawi case that people have been talking about. I think it's quite interesting that people, a bit telling that people think that that's a case to compare. You compare these two situations. You've got one which is Angela Rayner transferring her entire life savings over to her disabled son. No, let me finish. And then making this really big mistake of paying the wrong amount of tax after she got the bad advice. So that's the Angela Rayner situation. And then the Nadeem Zahawi situation, where millions of quid that he got from selling his company, he put into an offshore account. Then the ownership of that offshore account's contents moved between different family members for absolutely no reason over several years. And then he managed to pay the wrong amount of tax.
You're saying it's not the same thing? Yeah, it's not the same thing. And I called for Nadeem Zahawi. I called for him to go. I thought it was outrageous. I also thought it was outrageous that Rishi Sunak's wife was claiming to be a non-dom when she lived in this country, was married to the Chancellor, then the Prime Minister, kids at school here. Doesn't pass the smell test for me. Unacceptable. And I don't care. I called for Boris Johnson to go over his failure to register huge amounts in donations from whoever. We weren't quite sure for a quite long time. I'm very clear on this. I am down the line on this. I want our politicians to be whiter than white, to be seen to be white than white. The reality is, she's playing this whole, working class woman, I'm a mother of a teenager, who with disabilities. I don't think any of that is remotely relevant. She's an intelligent professional woman earning a six-figure salary who's bought homes a couple of times before. She had a complicated tax situation because of this trust. She should have sought proper legal advice, made sure she was on the right side of the law and paid the right tax. Either she didn't give full information to her lawyer, in which case she should go, or she did give full information to a lawyer and he gave the wrong advice, in which case she should probably sue him or report him to the Standards Association for Solicitors, because clearly they're incompetent. All this is all a whole shred of lies.
I think that if somebody makes an honest mistake, then the public and indeed the media have the right to criticise them for making a mistake. She's definitely getting plenty of criticism, but it is an honest mistake. And when you get advice from three different people, I'm taking her at her word. I also think that the alternative seems very unlikely to me. But when I hear that she has got three different pieces of advice telling her that this admittedly very complicated situation with the trust for her disabled son to give him security, when she's got that advice, she then found out that it's the wrong advice. She's immediately gone to the courts to give her permission to talk about it in public. As soon as she's got the right to talk about it legally in public, she's gone to Parliament and given that statement. And
no, she didn't go to Parliament. She went to Sky News and got in a bubble bath with Beth Rigby.
So
that wasn't a political interview.
I don't think anybody could accuse the media of not having been plenty.
I'm sorry, Sky News and the BBC have totally soft-soaped this story. They're so relieved there's any other story they can cover rather than this, because if it was a Tory minister, they'd have been all over this much quicker. The reality is, she criticised journalists who, at the Telegraph, Mail and Sun, asked questions about. Went, hold on a minute, you've got this property. Well, how much stamp duty did you pay? And are you sure? Did you switch and flip properties, and people asking completely legitimate questions as part of their job. She and her department and people on her behalf criticised those journalists, denied there was any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, she's hired a KC to look into it. So while she was criticising journalists and people on her behalf were, she was herself questioning it. That's a bit sodding rich. The Prime Minister went out on Monday afternoon to defend her. On Monday morning, we understand, she'd had the advice from this KC to tell her that there was some serious question marks about her financial affairs. Did she tell the Prime Minister, do you know, that she'd had this KC's report?
I see it very differently, and I think that's a bit unfair, if I'm honest, Julia.
What's unfair?
Let's bear in mind that when she gave this statement, she was very clear that actually all of these specific accusations that had been made against her over the last several days were wrong, right? That was the whole point of the statement. It was saying the specific accusations that have been made against me were wrong, but I have found out that I've made another totally different mistake.
No, there were specific allegations about whether or not she'd paid enough stamp duty, because it was publicly available information that she hadn't. It was publicly available information. It was published in newspapers that she had paid only 30,000 stamp duty on this 80 grand property instead of the 70,000 pound that would be due if it were her second home.
All of those accusations were based upon completely false readings of the situation with the trust, and she was then forced to reveal all this personal information that I think most people would say she should be allowed to keep it private. She shouldn't have to tell us about the terrible things that happened when her baby was born. She shouldn't have to tell us about how difficult it is to live when you've been divorced and your kid's disabled and you want to give security to your child over
I hate to tell you, no, I've got no requirement for her to tell us about that, but she'd already told us about that. She's done interviews, with the Mirror, a year or two ago, telling us about that, talking about her disabled son. Genuinely, I've asked around my friends who have nothing to do with politics. None of them knew whether she had one kid, two kid, three kid. They knew vaguely she had a kid when she was 16 and that she'd become a grandmother. They knew nothing about any other children. They knew nothing about a divorce. They knew nothing about one of her children being disabled as a result of something happening at birth. That information, though, is some information she has volunteered. She's talked about it in speeches, as she's entitled to do. She talked about it in interviews with, friendly newspapers like the Mirror. I consider politicians' private lives to be private unless there is wrongdoing. And I absolutely believe that politicians' children's privacy is sacrosanct. So no issue on that. She is the one who has breached that privacy. I don't see what her son being disabled as a result of negligence at birth, and she's got this payout from the NHS, we don't know how much in 2020. I don't see what the hell that's got to do with her not paying her full stamp duty.
So it's because she's had because of that family background, the ownership of this house that she co-owned with her now ex-husband got put into a trust, and because of the complications around how you deal with these kinds of trusts, which I think most of us would find pretty complex in terms of tax, that's why she's ended up paying the wrong amount. No, it's not. No, it's not, because the whole point is this is nesting arrangement. It's part of the divorce. So one of them is in the house with the kids, and then the other one is in the house with the kids, and they both have to have other properties to live in when the other one's in the house. Very nice arrangement that can keep, particularly for a disabled child, so that they can keep the continuity. And the house has been, given lots and lots of refurbishment to make it sure it's suitable for a 17-year-old with, we don't know what his disabilities are. That's the family's business. We have no need to, no right to know any of that information. But that doesn't require the house being put into a trust. It doesn't require her to take 162k out of that house. People are saying it's the money from the medical negligence payout from the NHS, or it may just be the equity she had in her quarter of or her half of the home before that case. I don't know. I'm not passing judgment on that. Surely she had. Can I answer that? Can I answer that, Julia? Because that really, really annoys me. It's a headline that was in the Mail and the Standard. I think it's such a nasty distortion, and it really represents how incredibly biased some journalists are against Angela Rayner. Like, she has she's taken her life savings, basically everything that she owns, and put it into a trust for her son so that he's got security for the rest of her life.
When did she say? No, that's not what she said. That is not what she said. She didn't put her life savings into that trust. She had equity in her home, and so did her husband, and they put it into trust. Many people would argue that's just a way of dodging tax, dodging inheritance tax when they die, just handing it over now. 50% of the property is in trust for the son, and then 25% her husband keeps, 25% she keeps, and she's kind of got the trust to pay her for the 25%. But that's not her putting her life savings into, that's just mums and dads paying for their teenage children, which is like what we all do.
I mean, it's paying for your kid who's disabled to have security in life. And yes, it is, as I understand it, from what I've read, I'm not privy to any specific information, it's pretty much what she's got. And then she, at the same time, as basically handing over enormous amounts to her son for his security in the future, has taken a significantly smaller amount in order to get a deposit on a home, which is the only home she owns, which is this place.
I've made that point repeatedly. Here's the thing: she says she does everything for her kids. She does everything for her kids. She works in London most of the week, and then she goes and sees her kids. They're in their teenage. We know they're under 18, okay? And yet she's bought a home in Hove. I mean, which is hundreds of miles away. I'm just saying, as the mother of a teenager, I find that a bit weird.
It's so wild that we think that this is a conversation to be having in like a news program.
No, it's none of my business. She's the one who said, everything I've done for the good of my children by buying a home hundreds of miles away, when I'm already hundreds of miles away because of my job. I've got no problem with her doing that. No one questions dads who do that. I've got no question on that. But I think most mums, like me, would go, that's a bit strange. But does she get a get-out clause? Because apparently we're all attacking her because she's a working-class woman. I'm not attacking her because she's a working-class woman. I've defended the issue. She's not owning 3 homes, blah, 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 blah. I like Angela Rayner, but she is a hypocrite. And let's face it, it's now shown she's a bit of a chancer.
I tell you what, I don't actually think it is because she's a working class woman.
That's what the Prime Minister claimed.
I think it's because she's a working class woman who's protecting workers' rights from employers. That is what the right wing media hate, and we've seen over and over again how any Labour politician who looks after workers' rights, tries to get them protections on day one from work, that is what they hate.
I tell you what, protecting workers' rights like that. Well, I tell you what, if you're protecting workers' rights, you know what workers most want? A job in the first place, and there are few of those about as a result of the policies that she is supporting in this government. Richard Power Sayeed, I'm going to give you a little round of applause for a valiant effort to defend Angela Rayner. I don't know how well that's going to work out, but all credit to you for trying. Former Labour Party official and author Richard Power Sayeed. Very quick response from Philip Ingram, who has laughed out loud as much to that as I did. I mean, all credit to him for trying.
If you've got complex tax matters, I've just checked their website. HMRC have got a very good helpline for stamp duty, and it's open between 0800 and 1700 Monday to Friday, and it's 0300 200 3510 in case Angie's listening, or anyone else. And they will give advice and say, oh, we understand your complexity, that's what you owe.
There you go. There you go, Angie. Or, I mean, she could have just wandered down the road from her department,
phoned Rachel and said,
and to the Treasury and said, hello, can you help us with that? Again, you'd think she'd know at least one lawyer given this government. Anyway.